Week 10 of the 2023 college football season is wrapped up, and so today I'll be giving you guys our Week 11 college football rankings. We are fully into November now. Things are heating up as we head down the stretch, so with that, we'll be looking forward to Week 11 here today and recapping Week 10 at the same time. So with that, let's get started with 1 through 7. Michigan remains number 1 this week. They beat Purdue 41-13, 9-0 on the season, and I feel like the top 3 this week are especially close. I mean, you could probably have Georgia number 1 this week. I considered having Georgia number 1 just based on their win against Missouri, which was definitely impressive. Mizzou turns out to be a really solid team this season, and it was definitely an impressive win for Georgia. And also, I mean, for Georgia, they've shown up in the games where they really need to. They haven't been quite as impressive against their more mediocre opponents, you could say, but in the games that really matter, Georgia has shown up. So that's a big reason why you could put them number 1. But Michigan, the way this team has been so dominant this season, that's what really stands out to me. They really haven't played any really good teams. In fact, they haven't even played a ranked team to this point in the season, which is kind of insane. But obviously coming up this upcoming week, got a big one against Penn State on the road. So we're going to find out a lot about Michigan this upcoming week if they are for real moving forward. But based on the way they've been so dominant this season, this is a team that hasn't allowed more than 13 points in any game this season. In fact, against Purdue, that was the most points this team has allowed all season. So I think Michigan is worthy of being ranked number 1 right now, and we'll see how they do, obviously, this upcoming week against Penn State. Ohio State's number 2. They beat Rutgers 35-16. I honestly was pretty surprised by them being ranked number 1 in the college football playoff rankings. I feel like Ohio State is, they are proven. They beat Notre Dame on the road, and they also beat Penn State a few weeks ago. But obviously when you got Georgia and Michigan also in the conversation, you could put Ohio State number 1, but I do think that as of now, I do want to put them number 2. They beat Rutgers 35-16, but this team does not start very fast. If we've noticed anything this season, they tend to pull away in the second half, and that's not going to work in every game this season. Obviously down the stretch, Michigan State coming up next, and then Minnesota, and then Michigan. Obviously a huge game to finish out the regular season, as it has been for the past few years. But Ohio State got them number 2, and Georgia number 3, even though once again the top 3 extremely close, I think, heading into Week 11. Washington's number 4. They beat USC 52-42. Huge bounce-back win for the Huskies. This team obviously questioned a lot heading into this past week, considering they had a couple of close games against not very good teams. Obviously, the Arizona State game, the Stanford game, allowed 33 points there, and it was pretty close. But they definitely showed up and had a huge win against USC last night, beat them 52-42. Meanwhile, USC just continues to fall. Just such a disappointing season for them, but for Washington, they have capitalized on that, and the Huskies are very much a national contender at this point in this season. Florida State number 5. I do have them swapping positions with Washington. They beat Pitt 24-7, but was a less than impressive win for Florida State. So I still feel like Seminoles, best team in the ACC, even though Louisville is definitely on the rise right now. But Florida State, obviously got to win out for them if they want any chance of being in the college football playoff. And at this point, your top 5 is, Oregon is right there at number 6. And really, Oregon is, I feel like, just as good as your top 5. They beat Cal 63-19. Ever since that Washington loss, the Ducks have really turned it on, and they have been dominant. Really impressive as well. So keep Oregon in the picture as well. I feel like Washington, Oregon is probably, that's probably bound to be your Pac-12 title game. So the winner of that is more than likely going to be in the college football playoff this season. Texas number 7 beat Kansas State 33-30, but what a scary finish for the Longhorns. They were so dominant at the start of that game. You kind of turned the game off and you're like, all right, Texas is going to win this matchup. But Kansas State stormed back into it. Texas was not safe till the very end, went into overtime, and Longhorns barely got away with that one. But Longhorns still 8-1 on the season, very much a college football playoff contender, but obviously the pressure's on down the stretch. You got to win out if you want any chance of being in that top 4. 8 through 14, Alabama's number 8, beat LSU 42-28. This team does not go away. They lost in week 2 to Texas, but since then, this team has only gotten better. Another impressive win for the Tide. Allowed 28 points there, which is more than you want to, but offensively, Alabama finally looked good. And 8-1 on the season. Alabama is still in contention, obviously, for them. Got to beat Georgia down the road in the SEC title game. But Alabama is still on the outside looking in, keep an eye on them. Penn State, number 9, beat Maryland 51-15. This team is now 8-1, and obviously a huge game against Michigan this upcoming week. This is a winnable game for Penn State as well. I mean, this team, they lost Ohio State, which is kind of a tough blow to their contention hopes, but they can still remain a contender if they beat Michigan this week. Penn State is still in the conversation, but obviously if you lose to Michigan this week, it's pretty much done. But Penn State's still in there, and this is a talented and experienced team, so keep an eye on them. And obviously, once again, huge game coming up this week. Ole Miss, number 10, beat Texas A&M 38-35. Play Georgia this upcoming week. So Ole Miss, that's going to be a huge test for them, but 8-1 on the season as well. I feel like Ole Miss is definitely a true dark horse in the SEC this season. Obviously, all the attention is on Alabama and Georgia, but Ole Miss ain't far behind. This is a good team that is very capable of beating a top team like Georgia. Louisville's number 11 beat Virginia Tech 34-3. Louisville, the way this team has risen in the past month, they are 8-1 on the season and very much emerged as probably your second place team in the ACC. Florida State's right up there, and honestly, for Louisville, if they can win out, even if, I mean, honestly, it might help them to even lose that ACC title game, especially if Florida State wins out, because that would put them in the New Year's Six versus Florida State. But Louisville very much in contention for pretty good bowl game at this point. I feel like their college football playoff contention hopes are pretty much gone. I just don't see a one-loss ACC team getting in there this season, but Louisville can still be dangerous down the stretch. Oregon State, number 12, they beat Colorado 26-19, moving up 5 positions. I mean, it wasn't even that impressive of a win, but there was chaos in the 10-20 section of the rankings this week. So many losses. So that does move Oregon State back up into the top 12, 7-2 on the year. And Oregon State's still a team that I feel like goes a bit overlooked in the Pac-12 with Oregon and Washington being so good. But Oregon State's still a really solid team. Tennessee, number 13, and Utah, 14. Both teams coming off of dominant wins. Tennessee beat UConn 59-3, 7-2. Utah also 7-2, and beat Arizona State 55-3. Utah's got a big chance this upcoming week. Obviously, their college football playoff contention hopes are pretty much gone. And really, I mean, if you're outside of the top 10, I would say you're probably out of contention. I feel like Ole Miss is still in contention, just barely, but Penn State especially upward. You've definitely got a lot of contenders in there. I mean, so in November, it's insane to still see this many contenders. I feel like by this time of the year, we kind of have narrowed it down to maybe 6 or 7 teams. I'd say there's probably still 9 or 10 at this point in early November. But Utah got a huge chance this week against Washington, and definitely a chance for them to still at least make some noise in the national picture. But 15-21, Oklahoma State. How about this team? 7-2 on the year. I mean, they're suddenly emerging as maybe one of the surprise teams of the season. Oklahoma State, I mean, there was some people that had higher expectations for them. Mike Gundy has obviously done a great job with the Cowboys, and honestly, he should probably be coach of the year in the Big 12 based on the way this team has played. I mean, it was not looking good heading into the season with the inexperience and the lack of depth in many areas, but suddenly the Cowboys are very much a top 15 team. They just beat Oklahoma, and they're 7-2. I mean, their 2 losses are definitely not good losses. They lost to South Alabama back in week 3, 33-7. Then they lost Iowa State on the road. Turns out Iowa State is decent, but still, I mean, 2 bad losses in the first month. And then they beat Kansas State. They beat Kansas. They beat West Virginia, who's suddenly a 6-win team as well. Dominant win over Cincinnati, and just beat Oklahoma, top 10 team, 27-24. So Oklahoma State's only getting better. This is one of the most dangerous teams in the country, I really do think. They really don't play any good teams down the stretch here. UCF, Houston, and BYU. But this team could make it to the Big 12 title game, and it very much looks like that could happen at this point with Texas against Oklahoma State. That's probably going to be your matchup now with OU having taken 2 losses. And, I mean, obviously you got a lot of 4-2 teams in conference in the Big 12 at this point. In fact, there are 5 teams with Iowa State, West Virginia, K-State, Oklahoma, and Kansas, all tied at 4-2 there. But yeah, Oklahoma State, huge season for them. They have been great. Missouri, number 16, they lost to Georgia 21-30, but not a terrible loss. I mean, they kept it close against one of the most dominant defenses in the country, or I just say one of the most dominant teams in the country as a whole. So Missouri 7-2 on the year, not a bad loss. They still very much, you could probably say, second best team in the SEC East, even though they just lost to Georgia. But Mizzou got them at number 16, Kansas right behind at 17. Beat Iowa State 28-21. Nice win for them. And Kansas 7-2. This is just been an incredible past couple of years for Kansas, and this team is, they're better than they were last year and very much a contender still in the Big 12. They need some help at this point, but Kansas still up there as one of the more dangerous teams in the conference. LSU number 18, this is your top-ranked 3-loss team in the country, and I also don't remember having this many 3-loss teams in the rankings. I mean, there's definitely I'd say a pretty clear split right around the 15 mark in the rankings, where I'd say probably 17 or 18 downward, there's just not very many good teams. I'd say there's maybe 19 or 20 really solid teams in the country this season, but after that, it's really tough to rank them because you just don't have a lot of good teams. But LSU number 18, they lost to Alabama 28-42. Tough loss for them, moving down 7, but still want to keep them in the top 20 just because of the amount of talent they have. They've had a brutal schedule this season, and they've been on the wrong end of a couple of tough losses. Oklahoma's number 19, 2 straight losses for the Sooners now. They just lost to the Cowboys and now moving down 5. This team is still 7-2, but man, considering this team was just a big national contender a couple of weeks ago, I mean, they're very much out of the picture now, and just now the question is, can this team even survive in Big 12 contention at this point of the season, which is something I can't imagine we were thinking in mid-October, but here we are. Arizona's number 20. This team, I had them ranked last week at 25. They now have 3 straight ranked wins. This is a 3-loss Pac-12 team that usually you would never even consider ranking a 3-loss Pac-12 team, but this season is definitely different. Arizona just beat UCLA, and it wasn't even close. Dominant fashion, 27-10. And I mean, Arizona, this is a team that has been impressive down the stretch, and they're probably the true dark horse of the Pac-12 at this point. I mean, they just beat Oregon State as well, beat Washington State 44-6. Down the stretch, they got Colorado on the road this upcoming week. Probably Colorado's last chance at bowl contention, even though those hopes are definitely looking bleak at this point. And then Utah and then Arizona State. So Arizona, solid team this season. I mean, this is a team that's gone a full 180 in the past couple of years. They were, I don't even know if they got a win a couple of years ago, maybe one win. Bottom line, they were awful a couple of years ago, and Arizona's turned it around. Notre Dame's number 21, lost to Clemson 23-31. Tough loss for them, 6-3 on the season now. And I mean, they're still a decent 3-loss team. It's surprising having this many 3-loss teams at this point and inside the top 21, but there's just not many good teams behind Notre Dame. I mean, James Madison has been pretty good. I finally got them ranked this week. 9-0, nice win over Georgia State, 42-14. But they haven't been quite as dominant as I would like in a group of 5 team. But James Madison definitely a team to keep an eye on in the group of 5, even though they're out of contention for the New Year's Six because of their transition from the FCS to the FBS. Otherwise, James Madison probably your favorite to get to the New Year's Six at this point. And bottom line, there's really no good team in the group of 5 this season. Tulane's now number 1 in that position after Air Force took a really bad loss to Army. And Tulane beat East Carolina, probably the worst team in the American Athletic this season, 13-10. And it was close and was not an impressive win. So Tulane's 8-1, but I mean, in bottom line, I mean, they're probably going to be taking on a really solid team in the New Year's Six, and it might not be pretty, but Tulane's probably in that favorite position for the group of 5 right now. North Carolina 23 beat Campbell 59-7. I mean, it's against Campbell, and this team is 7-2 coming off of 2 really bad losses in the past month, but North Carolina just still a solid and talented team that I want to rank, even though it's been a bumpy last month for them. And same for USC. This team has just continued to slip, and it's the defense for USC. Same problem as last year. We were thinking that was going to be fixed this year for USC. Their awful defense, but I mean, down the stretch, it's just been terrible. I mean, allowing 40 points in multiple games down the stretch, and over 50 in the past 2. I mean, they allowed 50 to Cal, or 49 to Cal actually, and then 52 to Washington this past week. So, I mean, for USC, I still got them ranked just because I don't feel like any team behind them would beat them. I mean, Fresno State, maybe, UCLA, maybe. But USC is still the talent of this offense is still worthy of them being ranked in the top 25. But obviously, they got 2 more games down the stretch here. They're 7-3 on the season. They got Oregon this upcoming week and then UCLA. So there's a chance that USC could be a 7-5 team heading into bowl season, which is something that in the preseason I can't imagine anyone would have thought. But your first 5 out: Fresno State 26, UCLA not far behind. Kansas State, they lost to Texas, but in impressive fashion, really kept it close at the end of that game, came back into it. So I do want to keep them still in the first 5 out. Iowa's a 7-2 team. Typically at this point in the season, you would rank a 2-loss Big Ten team, but their offense is one of the worst things I've ever seen. Their defense is good, but their offense is horrible. So I don't really want to rank them at this point. Liberty 9-0, but a lot of close games. Not too convinced of them quite yet, so I'm going to keep them at 30. Air Force dropped out after a terrible loss against Army, and UCLA obviously losing to Arizona. But with that, let me know your thoughts and comments below on this top 25, and I appreciate you guys all watching as always. Stay tuned for more from All Sports Central. Catch you on the next one.